Welcome back, everybody, to the You Ask We podcast, the show where you ask the questions, they answer them, and I'm just the guy in the middle. This week, we have an awesome guest. She's a musical superstar, ladies and gentlemen. She has 300,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. She's performed in places like Coachella, Brooklyn Mirage, a bunch of other festivals. She collabs with DJs such as Griffin, Cream, a bunch of other people, and she has a total of over 120 million streams on her music. I want to give a warm welcome to Zohara. What's up?
Hi. I didn't even know that number. I never calculated.
I got to do the research. So before we start this episode, this goes to all of y'all. I do the research. 80% of y'all watch the episodes and don't subscribe. So we're just going to look at you until you subscribe. So,
okay. Subscribe, people.
Just do it. You did it? Okay. Great. So now that we're here, the first question always comes from me, and that's what's new?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Is it loaded?
What's new? A lot of music, a lot of new music.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I feel like that's a hard first question.
It's just, like, what brings you to LA? I know you're normally in New York, like you kind of switch coasts back and forth. So what brought you here?
So I basically split my time between New York and LA. I lived in LA for 4 years.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you know that?
Kind of, but it's like I didn't really.
So I did a year abroad in Israel after high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was supposed to go to Yeshiva University for college.
Oh, wow.
And this was before I even thought, even LA was a thought. But I was finishing up my year, and music was always something I wanted to do. It was just a matter of how and when. And I actually went back to New York after Israel, and I walked into the dorm that I was supposed to be living in for my year in YU. And I was like, this didn't feel right. I was like, I just don't think I belong here. College in general, or just that environment, for where I was. And my manager at the time was like, I'm moving to LA and I want you to come with me. Let's do this. And it just became really clear to me that was my path. So I lived in LA for 4 years. From then, I was, I think, 18, turned 19.
Wow.
And I was in LA for 4 years. Now, since COVID, I've been in New York. I've been back in New York. And I'm kind of just splitting my time between here and there. And when I'm here, I'm super busy writing, meeting people. You can never not meet people. There's just so many people to meet, even no matter how long you've been doing this. And
but it's like coming to LA, in the beginning, that was a split-second decision.
Yeah, it was.
It just happened.
It really was. A month later, I moved to LA, and thankfully I had really awesome family friends who let me stay with them for 4 months until I figured it out.
Yeah, and I guess when we both looked at our individual dorms at YU, we had two very separate reactions.
Did you go to YU?
I did go to YU.
Oh my
God! I was there for undergrad. So it's when you saw the dorm, you were like, okay, time to pack it up, move to LA, pursue this music thing.
Yeah.
When I saw the dorm, me and my mom were like, okay, time for the Windex. That's
well,
all
that too, but I didn't want to say that.
Yeah. No, that's great. So now let's just get into some of these questions that people submitted for you.
Yeah.
For you to answer. So this first one comes from Leora. What was the inspiration behind the stage name Zohara?
That's a great question. I wanted something that was one name, one word. And I wanted something that really felt timeless and at the same time connected to my roots and where I'm from. And so the name Zohara means her splendor, her light. And I grew up in an environment where it's I was really encouraged to spread my light and to be connected to that. And what does that mean? And what are your gifts? And how can you share them? And my mom actually thought of it for me. And I was like, I wasn't convinced. And then 2 years later, when I wrote Remember, the Griffin record,
Right.
they were like, you need an artist name, like you need a stage name when this comes out. And so I had 2 weeks before, like we needed to sign papers and stuff, and I needed to give them a name. And I went to somebody that was very special to me, very special human in general. And she didn't know, that my mom came up with the name Zohara, and I was thinking about it and I wasn't sure. And I just went over to her and I was like, hey, I need a name. And like, can you just channel something for me? Can you just like, what comes to you? And the first thing she said was, what about Zohara? And I was like, ha? I was like, no way, you did not just say that.
That's funny.
And so for me, that was kind of my message, I guess. Or that was kind of the sign I needed.
Like God's sign.
Yeah.
Just telling you straight up.
Honestly, that's how it felt. So after that moment, I was like, okay, this is it. And then after I really chose it, I was able to really find a lot more meaning in it as well for myself, because I feel like the name represents, who I see myself really being, like the potential version of myself, like the perfect version of me. And I want other people to also feel that when they listen to my music. I want people to feel encouraged to spread their light and to really become whoever they want to be. And so it's a reminder for me, and hopefully it can inspire other people too. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Honestly, I was also into like music for a little bit, but
Really?
it was like mainly like a hobby thing. Like I wasn't trying to blow up or anything like that. And my like SoundCloud name was OGET because it was based off my like old like Finsta when I was in middle school. So it's like, it's fun. Like so many people have like different meanings like behind like their stage names. And it's like, it's awesome to like see like some people it's like really personal. Some people it's just like, oh, this is funny.
Right.
Like might as well do it. So it's like,
I definitely wanted something that meant something to me.
yeah,
Something that would be eternal, something that would be like everlasting, something that I wouldn't get sick of, because that would be bad. It's really important,
It's beautiful. So this next question comes from Liat. And speaking of like how busy you are all the time, like writing new music, meeting people, stuff like that, she's actually curious, what does your day-to-day look like?
Good question. My day-to-day kind of varies, but mostly what I'm doing is I'm writing. I'm in the studio with a bunch of different writers and producers, and I write a lot for other artists as well. So,
Oh, you're a ghostwriter too?
not a ghostwriter, but a songwriter. So,
Okay.
I write for a lot of DJs. I write for a lot of other artists as well that, just like basically full-time songwriter as well as being an artist. So I'm in different rooms almost every day writing for different artists and trying to tap into their mind and what they want to say and trying to create the perfect thing for them, while at the same time also writing for me. It's like two different brains. Like you put on the writer cap and then you have the artist cap. So being able to do both keeps me busy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, who are some like big names that you like wrote songs for? I'm curious.
Well, I'm constantly writing for people like Tiesto, David Guetta, Ava Max. Who else? I was just in with Cheat Codes last week. It was really fun.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's dope.
they're great people. Louis the Child. So many.
I mean, like, who's your favorite one you wrote for?
A lot of the times, I'll tell you the truth, I tend to just say, you know what, let's just write a great song and it'll find its home, So I don't really focus on, okay, we're going to write a record specifically for this person so that it can get in their hands. I just focus more on, okay, let's make an amazing song. And that way it can go to so many people. So I would say just less about the favorite person and more about just like getting the right people in the room to write a really great record. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing so much dance music right now, so I would have to say maybe David Guetta. You know,
I used to love David Guetta growing up. Like, I think like my favorite song by him like ever is like Dangerous.
Remind me how it goes.
It's like, I don't know where the light is taking us, but something in the night is
Oh yes,
oh man, that was a great song.
that's an
Like,
oldie.
I grew up on that too. Like, that was one of the songs I grew up on, so it's like that was a great one. So yeah, speaking more to the performance side of Zohara, this question comes from Honey. How do you hype yourself up before going on stage? Like, what's the routine?
I just dance. I do jumping jacks. I dance. I just try to get out of my head as much as possible. So kind of just jump around, kind of like you have to match the energy of the crowd and more. Because when you go on stage, it's not you versus them, but they're there to connect with you and you're there to connect with them. So it's like one person needs to match the energy of like thousands of people, you know? So I try as much as possible to not think about it, and just lead with my heart and just go on stage and make it absolutely not about me. So I hype myself up, do all the affirmations, cup of tea in hand, and I just do it.
You just do it. That's
I just do it.
Shout out Nike. No, but it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the affirmations because it's like I really would only have one for myself, and that's like I keep reminding myself like half the people here love and support you, the other half you'll never see again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I always remind myself that. That's like, what's your favorite affirmation that you go to? Like, what's the go-to one?
I am limitless.
I am limitless. That's it.
You asked me what's my favorite one.
I mean, I'm saying it's like it's just those three words. Like, that's beautiful. Honestly, that reminds me a lot of. Do you know who KSI is?
No.
It's like a YouTuber. So it's like he has an affirmation like when he's like going into like boxing, like he just repeats the word legacy like in his head, like just legacy, 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 and like. So yeah, similar thing. That's cool.
That's cool.
It's dope. So this next question comes from Dennis. Have you signed with a record label?
No.
No. So if not, like, how do you find yourself with these awesome opportunities, like as an artist, as a writer? How do you find yourself with that?
I think I owe it to just really diving in to the unknown. When I was 18, I only knew one person in the music industry who really opened up doors for me. But when I lived in LA for 4 years, in those 4 years, every day I was meeting new people. Every day I was finding opportunities to be in the room with people who were better than me. And it was hard because you're the youngest one. Mm-hmm. You're a female in a room with like a bunch of producers, bunch of guys that you don't know. Also, I came from a really, Jewish background. So it was a little different for me stepping into that world. But I think it's just about taking the opportunities that come your way and also creating the opportunities, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
You don't know what you're doing.
Welcome to everyone else's mindset.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm here. I know I'm talented. I know I have what to share. I know I have what to give. Put me in the room. Just like, let me do what I know how to do. And it just kind of happened organically from there. Because like one session led to another session, led to me meeting this person and that person. And then before you know it, you're busy. Yeah.
That's great. So it's like, is that like, that's pretty much how you found yourself like getting connected to artists like Griffin and stuff like that? Just like through connections?
Well, with Griffin, it was a little different. Right before I moved to LA, I did my first collaborative writing session. I used to always write by myself. I never knew what it meant to write with other people or that even existed. And so I had a session in the Sony building in New York. And And like I said, it was my first time writing with other people. And we ended up writing Remember that day, the Griffin record. And I didn't know what to think of it. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was amazing, but I didn't know how things worked. Like, okay, we wrote a great song. Now what? I didn't really know. So with that one, it actually went to a bunch of other people before it got in Griffin's hands. So for 2 years after that, it was kind of bouncing around. People wanted it. People were holding on to it, never released it. And actually a bunch of other vocalists cut that song. And when it got into Griffin's hands 2 years later, he was like, whoever the girl is singing this demo, she needs to stay on the record. And that happened to be me. And that's kind of what happened. So I think the song just needs to be in the right hands to deliver to the artist at the right time. It really is a lot to do with timing, because you can have a really great song sitting in your folder. And it doesn't mean that it's not a great song if it doesn't get picked. It just means that it's not the right time, or it's not the right home for it. So like, it's really like a puzzle piece. You really need to get in at the right time. And so I think my manager at the time sent it over to his team at Interscope, I believe. And that's kind of just how it happened. And we didn't meet, him and I. And our song was like #1 on the dance charts. And we haven't even met. And then they asked me to come and do Coachella with them like a few months after. And we actually met for the first time, like right before Coachella.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Speaking of him, like this question comes from, I'm totally going to butcher this name, and I'm so sorry in advance. Gelasio, how exciting is it to sing at these live shows with Griffin?
It's magical. Like, him and like who he is, he's such a great human, such a great person. His team, his people, really have given me so many opportunities to perform in such iconic places. And it's given me like so much experience that I don't think I would have had if I didn't say yes to all these opportunities. But also, it's just really cool to taste what it's like to perform in front of so many people, and to taste what it's like to really be an artist and to do the thing. So I'm grateful that I was able to like be in those rooms and have those experiences. Really, really, really insane.
I mean, do you have any like funny stories like about you and Griffin that you want to share?
I don't know about funny stories,
Like,
but I will tell you about the first time we met. So they mentioned to me that they were doing Coachella like 2 months before. This was in 2019. And our song was doing really, really well. And so I haven't met him this whole time. And they were having sound check for Coachella the week before weekend 2. I was only supposed to perform weekend 2. And before weekend 1, they were having the sound check. So it was in Van Nuys. Mm-hmm. I got down there. I met his band. I met his people. And I just started rehearsing. I didn't even know, like, I've never even done a sound check before at this point, so like I really didn't know anything. I didn't have experience. And so I'm singing the song, I'm singing it over and over again, just, I guess doing sound check. And midway through the song, Griffin walks in, and he like right away is like super impressed and kind of shocked. And then I finished and I was like, hey, how are you? And he was like, oh my God. He's like, are you able to come for weekend 1, like tonight? Because I can't do this show without you. It wouldn't be the same without you. You're insane live. I didn't know you were so good. And I was like, like, how am I going to say no to that? Like, how do you say no to Coachella, even if it's 24 hours away? Yeah. So I called my mom. I called my people. I was like, am I doing this? And they were like, 100% you're doing this. So I went home, packed a bag, and came right back to Van Nuys, hopped on the van with them, and drove to Palm Springs. And then 24 hours later, I performed in front of 50 or 60,000 people.
It's insane.
For the first time. That was my first show ever.
That was your first show ever.
That was my first show ever.
And it's like, well, it's like how did people like it? How did you feel after it was all said and done?
It was surprisingly, I felt so comfortable on stage. And for me, that was the most surprising thing because it felt like, oh, it feels like I've done this before, even though I haven't. So it was very surreal. Like you can actually see everybody like in front, but you obviously can't see people that are so far away from you. But like for me, I just focused on really connecting to the people that I could make eye contact with, because everybody else is like, you can connect with them like energetically, but I think that's what kept me grounded, even though it was really an out of body experience. Like you can't really describe that feeling, you know?
It's like, were people doing like mosh pits like during like your and Griffin's performance?
I don't think they were doing mosh pits. We're not really a mosh pit type of song.
Fair.
You know?
but it's also like people like mosh at like insanely random songs sometimes. So it's like, I'm just like curious. Like sometimes people like will like mosh pit to like Earl Sweatshirt.
Oh, I don't know.
Like for a completely random song that's not supposed to be. So this question comes from Jake. What would you say is your favorite time performing ever? Like what's your favorite memory?
Probably Brooklyn Mirage. Either last summer or the summer before. I was able to have my whole family there because I'm from New York. And usually a lot of shows are not, close by for my family to come. So it was just a very wholesome moment that my whole family was able to watch me perform. Brooklyn Mirage is like one of my favorite venues ever, ever, ever. And it just was like amazing. All around amazing. The fact that I had my family there really like topped it off for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like seeing you perform in places like the Brooklyn Mirage and Coachella and things like that. It's like, it's been a dream for like so long. That's why I'm such a huge fan, because it's like one of us that just like happens, like we made it, like I've been dreaming of like performing at things like Coachella or like the Mirage or MSG and stuff like that. But it's like the closest thing I got to that was it was my last year at YU, and like me and my friend Yoel, shout out Yoel, we share the same birthday. So what we did
When's your birthday?
February 11th.
Coming up.
Yeah, soon. Thank God. Yeah, so for our last like year in YU, what we decided to do for our birthday was we rented out a bar, and like we invited a bunch of people, and there was like a stage. And at the time I was still kind of doing like rap, like as a hobby. Like that was like my main hobby when I was in YU, because I had a friend, Johnny, who was also like, he was much like bigger.
Shout out Johnny.
Shout out Johnny. He was much bigger. He is much bigger into music than I am. Like he's really passionate about it, and like he's asked me to like record some songs with him, blah blah blah. So he brought up the idea. It's like, oh, there's a stage in this bar. Like he saw it with us like a week before, and he was like, oh, there's a stage. Why don't we perform? And I was like, that would be pretty fun. And then we did it. And
was it like a DJ thing?
It's like
what was your guys' thing?
So we had, it was rap, but it's like,
oh, it was rap. I didn't catch that.
We had a friend, Mikey. Shout out Mikey.
Shout out Mikey.
Shouting out so many people this episode. It's insane. But we had a friend, Mikey, who basically like DJ'd the party, and like he put our songs like
in the set,
like, in his set list, and like we were just like performing our songs, and then like toward the end, like I literally like jumped into the crowd, like crowd surfed, and like they literally like carried me for like a round.
Wow. And
like brought me back to the stage. I'm certain it was just because it was my birthday, and like in any other day it wouldn't have happened, but it was just like that was like a little thing, and that was like one of my favorite memories ever. So it's like performing at something like Coachella, I couldn't imagine. Like it's unreal.
It really is unreal. Still to this day I'm pinching myself.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So this next question comes from Kyle. if you're able to share it. If you can't, no worries. When is a solo album coming out?
Oh, my favorite question. It's been in the works this whole time. I don't know when the album is coming out, but I do hope to release singles in 2024. I'm saying it here so that I'm holding myself accountable.
2024, be on the lookout.
Yeah, it's time. It's time, right?
Yeah.
It's time for some
About time.
some music.
Yeah.
Some Zohara music.
About time. The streets have been asking.
I know.
But so it's like, I mean, it's like what goes into like making your solo music? Like what's like the songwriting process
It's a
for it?
lot harder than writing for other people because you really need to be honest with yourself. And when you're trying to make music that, I mean, everyone is different. I think for me, it's really important that my music is extremely authentic to me. And with that comes really learning about yourself. So it's not just about sitting in a room and writing a great song anymore. It's about how can I truly show up wholeheartedly as myself, and how can I pour that into a song and make it feel impactful and make it be something that other people can relate to, and how can I make other people feel while still being authentic to myself and creating something that I'm proud of. So the perfectionist in me hasn't allowed myself until now. So I have a lot of songs that are really special to me, and they're in the works. They're in production. So
it's like, what would you say is the emotional state like when you're writing? Like, what would you say is the emotional state you're in?
Very raw and vulnerable. I would say like soulful. But just, I get in my head a lot when I'm writing, when it comes to my own stuff, but I know that I search for this feeling, this knowing inside of me when it's right. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is it. So I'm kind of just like allow myself to be open to whatever it is that comes and flows through me. And try not to be hard on myself or write anything off too quickly, because art, it takes many forms until it's, ready to be shown. And there's so many first drafts, second drafts, like it, but also there's also no right or wrong. Art is art. Music is music. You can't do it wrong. It's just expression at the end of the day. So I just try to use it as a tool to really express myself at the end of the day. And yeah, the more vulnerable I get in the room, the better the song is going to be.
And that's so true, because it's like literally I've talked to other artists too. Like I had someone on this podcast as well, and he was saying pain makes the best music. Like, not in a sense that he's like he wants pain, but in a sense where it's just like when he finds himself like down in the dumps, like when he's dealing with harder moments in life, it's easier to make meaningful music. Whereas like when someone's like doing good, it's just like, what am I gonna write about? Like sunshine,
right?
Like
it's almost like the pain is the inspiration.
Yeah, literally. Like I've seen myself when I was in like harder situations, I was able to write better, or at least like easier.
And honestly, I think it's a gift because you're able to take the pain and turn it into something beautiful, rather than just like, some people don't have an outlet to express their whatever it is that they're feeling, And so I think for me, the biggest gift is being able to take whatever it is that I'm feeling and turn it into something everlasting, and really turning it into something beautiful. So I agree. I think pain is an opportunity to create something beautiful.
100%. This next question comes from David. In an industry that's so difficult to have an identity and stick to it, how would you say you managed to stick to your identity and values, and how do you think that's shaped you to who you are today?
Great question, David. I think jumping into this so early on, I owe a lot to my family and to my parents and to how I was raised, because I was raised with a lot of spiritual values. And I think that I always knew what was important to me. And I was never somebody who questioned or doubted my spirituality. And it was always a really big part of who I was. So I think the harder part was feeling so different from everybody else that I met and not knowing really how to connect with them. But it's also a learning process. Along the way, you mature, you get older, you strengthen your values and, you know, what's important to you. But I really think that it has to be my connection to my spirituality and to my family at the end of the day.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, end of the day, family is what matters. In my opinion, it matters the most. But it's like, it's good to like bring it back to that.
Yeah, I've always been close with my family, and they've always been my number one fans and supporters, and they encourage me to do all of this. So I think their support and their love also made me feel safe to do this, because a lot of people don't do this, want to do this, but don't do this, you know? Not even music, just like, just want to do something that they're not doing. And I think because I had their support, I was able to, it strengthened my values and it strengthened my identity of self. And like I said, it's really a learning process. I had a hard time in the beginning, you know, because I was so young. So even though I did know who I was, you're still always discovering. You're still always uncovering layers, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I hope I answered the question. It was a good one.
You did. It was a great question and an even better answer. Oh. So yeah, the way this show works pretty much is, I said before, I always ask the first question. I also always ask the last one. And it's always, if you had to give people watching one piece of advice, what would you say?
I would say take the time to really connect and understand yourself. And whatever it is, through whatever it may be, truly just invest a lot of time in you and in your happiness. And what does your happiness look like? Because when you come from that place, really anything is possible. All fear goes away because you're super, super connected to you. And I give this advice to myself too. But it's like, truly invest in your happiness. But from a real place, you know, like not just, oh yeah, I'm happy. Like, what is it that lights me up? What is it that I want? How can I be the best version of myself? And from there, just watch. Like, life will unfold. Life will give you opportunities to show up as that person. So it's just your job to take those opportunities. Mm-hmm.
Invest in yourself, people. Zohara, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. If you guys like this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. If you guys want to check out what's going on with the show, like figure out who's coming next, ask questions for that person, make sure to follow the socials. All the links are going to be down below. If you want to see what Zohara's got going on, I'm going to put her links down below as well. And with that, this has been the You Ask We podcast. This is Zohara. My name is Ed in Toronto. And I'll see you guys next week.
Yup.